Now I want to talk a little bit about the way in which we use language. Now, we spoke before about the fact that most people who are writing are not first language English. And unfortunately, a large amount of what you read in journals is very badly written. And here are some examples of actual things written on articles. Okay, just before we start, how many of you were taught anywhere in your training that in order to write scientifically or academically, you must write in the third person and the passive voice? Do you know what I mean? Instead of saying, I'm holding this remote, you have to say, the remote is being held by me. How many of you were taught? Just put up your hands. Just let me see. I'm really interested in this, in the answer to this question. 1, 2. So it's over half.
Self-scope.
Sorry?
Self-scope. That I learned that along the way.
Oh, you see? Okay. Well, forget it. No, what's fascinating about this is who can explain to me? So you learn that this is the way. Do you ever speak to an English-speaking person who talks like that? If I were to say to you, this talk is being given by me, and the remote is being held by me, what would you think? You think, what's wrong with this guy? And in fact, it's a particular form of talk which is quite. So why are we taught to write like that? Anybody? Can any of you remember why you were taught you had to write like that?
I think it takes away a bit of the subjectivity.
Okay, so that's the argument, is that it stops being, it makes it objective. Okay? Okay. Hey?
To an extent.
To an extent. Well, you know what I'm going to say next, but yeah. What I say next is being known by you. This is this thing about objectivity. If somebody can explain to me why it is more objective to say the remote is being held by me than I am holding the remote, then we're in business. How is that more objective? It's not actually, is it? Then we have all these marvelous ways of using lots and lots and lots of words when a few would do. So here's a lovely example. 50% of the 4 subjects were approached by the investigator and were requested for their participation under the auspices of the current study. I mean, it's a laugh a minute. But I mean, actually, what's the difference between that and saying we approached 2 of the 4 people and asked them to participate? That's all they're saying there. But they are. And then my particular favorite is, who has ever used "it is believed"? Anybody? I have. "It is believed" has been used by me. Have you done "it is believed"? Okay, what is happening? That is what we call an agentless passive. It is believed. Who believes it? Your mother? It is believed. A lot of things are believed. It is believed the world is flat. Well, some people do believe it. It is believed that Armageddon is coming next Tuesday at 11 o'clock. Some people. When people use that, it's often an indication. Well, people are taught to use it, but it's often an indication of something that particularly inexperienced authors want to do, which is to hide away. So I don't want to say but I think it. So I say it is believed. So it's actually a way of hiding away. And remember, we were talking earlier about authorship and authority. It's a way of saying, I'm not here really. I don't think anything, but it is believed. It's actually a way of running away from your responsibility as the author and trying to hide away from your reader. It doesn't work. So I like first person. If the journal doesn't allow first person, you can usually get around it. So don't force it. But you'll be surprised. Journals use first person all the time. What do I mean by signposting? Use subheadings. Make it easy. Remember, we were saying take the reader by the hand. There are 3 major issues in the field of nutrition and non-communicable diseases amongst the elderly. They are this, this, and this, and I'm going to deal with each of them in turn, and that'll show how I get to my thing. Number one, this, and then the reader knows, oh, I'm waiting out for 3 things, and don't give them 4 and don't give them 2, give them 3. But then your reader knows exactly where they're going. The other thing that's quite useful, I mean, look at the journal and whether they allow subheadings and so on, but somehow people think you're not allowed subheadings. Subheadings break up the text and make it into little bite-sized pieces, which is good. The last book that I did, single author book, my editor picked up page proofs, and he said, that looks unreadable. And I said, yes, I know it looks unreadable, but why? He said, there are no paragraph markers. I had just written a very long paragraph that went over 2 pages. He said, people are going to stop reading your book. Make white space on the page. Make it easy for people. And simplify as much as you can. And in the realm of simplifying, there's a thing that people who write who write fiction talk about, creative writing. They talk about killing your darlings. Have you ever heard about killing your darlings? Okay, it sounds like infanticide, which is exactly what it feels like, but it's not. Okay, so killing your darlings is you like some very fancy turn of phrase. And or you like some jargon very, very, very much. And what you might have to do to make your article understandable is to get rid of that, even though you love it. So if you look at the Lancet, for example, which is the top medical journal, and people have to often write very short things that are 2,000 words long. There will be technical terms, like if you're writing about some kind of laboratory test and so on, but the rest of the language will be as simple as anything. So don't confuse a high level of technical expertise with using big words, particularly if you're not first language, but this goes for everybody. Keep your sentences short. Don't use the passive voice because nobody speaks like that, so use the active voice. We did this, the participants did that, and so on and so forth. Do not write a single word or sentence more than you need. Now, if a journal says to you, the maximum length of an article that we accept is 4,000 words, and you've written everything, and you've got to 2,500 words, what do you do? Why are you laughing? What do you do? Okay, so the first thing is you feel inadequate, so you add a little bit. You think, oh, padding. Who said padding? Oh, I have padded so much in my life. You pad. There is, you get the student. So you say to the student, you've got to write 3,000 words, and you get 1,000 fantastic words, and this one said that, and this one said that, and this one did that, and this one did that, and this, and what about, and my mother, and all of this, and the other, and you can see that it's like they're just marking time. We've all done it. It is the absolute worst thing to do for a range of reasons. First of all, it's bad writing. And so much of your article depends on structure. So the minute you start padding, you generally speaking, ruining your structure. But we spoke right at the beginning about the pressure on journals. So you can get something into a journal. I've had stuff which has been accepted in 2016, will be printed only in 2018 because there's such a backlog. So if I say as the editor of a journal, maximum 6,000 words, and I get in 3 articles which are each 2,000 words each, and they're good, how am I going to feel? I'm going to be delighted as an editor because I can get 3 articles off my list and into print as quickly as I would have managed to move one of them. So the shorter you can never write more than you need to write. Never, ever, ever pad. And there's that old joke, I don't know who it was, or somebody was writing to somebody else saying, I'm going to write you a long letter because it would take me too long to write you a short one. I don't know if because it's actually more difficult to keep your word length down. I mean, I'm currently marking a PhD, and it's the second of 3 that I'm marking at the moment. So I just finished one yesterday, and then I picked up the next one. It is. I never need to go to the gym again because it is. It is so heavy. I can just do that, and it's like this. Now, then, when I look at that, how would you feel if you get something like that? You're not going to be great, the person wrote some extra stuff for me. That's not how you feel. You just think, oh no. And then I start reading it, and actually it's very good, but much too much detail that doesn't need to be there. And then I don't feel very well disposed to that student. And it's exactly the same with an article. Because actually, people don't, you spoke about how you read. Your reviewers don't want to read more. They want to read from the beginning to the end, and then they want to get on with writing their own stuff. Part of what we have to deal with is the reality of not having the time to publish. Unfortunately, you can get all these books like write any book in 28 days. I mean, it's just nonsense. 29 days maybe. No, I'm just joking. But we have to find ways of creating space for publishing. So some of my colleagues who were visiting recently from the UK said, the first thing you must say when you say, I don't have time to publish, is you must say, I do not make publishing a priority. And that actually, if instead of saying I don't have the time, you say I don't make it a priority, sort of changes things internally. But the reality is, I'm sure lots of you have got lots of teaching, and you've got family demands and so on and so forth. So part of what we have to do is we've got to build in ways of making publishing possible. And saying to yourself, do you know these ones? I can't start writing until I have a free week. I can't start writing until my kitchen is clean. I can't start writing until we all know that. That is very good, but those are all delay tactics. And we've just got to get rid of it. I choose not to write until my kitchen is clean, and I hope my kitchen is never clean, because then I'm never going to have to write. This is another way of avoiding writing. There are many ways to avoid writing. One of them is to keep going to courses that tell you how to write. Because then I don't have to write. I'll just go to a course that tells me how to write, and then an advanced, and then a super advanced, and then a spectacular. Okay, no. You actually have to write. So there's only one way to learn to write, and that's to write. You've got to get into the habit somehow of writing. Now, what people who teach creative writing often recommend is what they call morning pages. This doesn't suit everyone. It absolutely suits me. You get up 10 or 15 minutes before you normally would get up. Does that sound doable? That's not a lot. Okay, already it's still, we're hearing the hollow laugh. Okay, bear with me. Often it'll be before, particularly those who have care responsibilities. You've got parents to care for and children to care for and relatives and so on. Often before other people. How many of you have got laptops? Have you all got laptops? You see, that's amazing. In my day, we didn't even have computers. It makes a huge difference. Sit down at your laptop and you write for 15 minutes. I don't care what you write. You can write, I am sitting at this laptop. I don't know why I'm here. There is a bug on the wall. I hate the person who suggested this. I don't care but you sit there for 15 minutes and you write. This is what my shopping list is going to be. Here's my recipe. I don't care. What you will find is a number of things. You will be desensitizing yourself. You'll be getting used to, you'll be making friends with your computer. You'll be making friends with your chair. Remember the PhD, the art of the seat of the pants attaching itself to the seat of the chair. And you will find actually quite quickly you get bored of writing boring things and you'll start writing. Yeah?
Just wondering, does writing not go with reading?
Yes. Yes. Yes, you have to read, but I'm glad that you asked that. We were going to talk about this later, but it's also good. Of course you have to read. But for many, many academics, reading is a defense against writing. So, I can't write this until my kitchen's clean. A more sophisticated version is, I can't write this until I've read the following 79 books. I'm just going to read this one. All right, now I'm going to write. Well, I think I'll just read something because it's easier. Okay, so be careful of that. And actually, I've got a bad reputation with my students. I always say, write your literature review before you've read anything. But and of course, you can't. But I'll tell you, it's about taking authority of the writing. If reading, if you're reading passively and you're reading it to avoid writing, you're not structuring anything. There are a million more enjoyable things than writing. Eating is much more fun than writing. So part of what you do, and the more you avoid, the bigger the block gets. So it's exactly like the way a phobia develops. You quite scared of a dog or something like that, and so you avoid one particular dog, and that makes you feel better. So then you avoid more dogs, and that makes you feel better. And then you can't look at a picture of a dog and it's maintained like a phobia. And the way that you deal with a phobia is through graded exposure. Your morning pages. No, absolutely. And boy, do I get it at times. I mean, I love writing. But I have this horrible, don't think it doesn't happen to me, this horrible, horrible thing of not just feeling I can't get over this hump. Part of it actually is also the conflation of trying to write the beginning of what you're doing at the beginning of your writing. It will often take me as long to write the first paragraph that I write as the rest of the article. Start where it's easy to write. So often write your results, often if you've collected data, because you know that you're on top of and I will often write the introduction last because it's actually the most complicated. It doesn't matter where you start, start doing the mundane things, and we'll talk about that also later when we talk about how to deal with reviewers. Avoidance is the absolute enemy of everything, but of writing in particular. But there's a way of doing it where it actually doesn't cost money, and this really works. And this is called shut up and write. And you can do this with a group of people, particularly because you've all got laptops. It is much more easy, those of you who have very busy jobs, if you say, I'm going to set aside the following 2 hours to write on my own, somebody else in the department will say, I just need a minute of this, or the student needs this. There's always something. If in your diary, however, is that I'm having a meeting with the following two people or 3 people or 5 people, and I can't let them down, you're more likely to show up. So what shut up and write is you all sit together. What we do is we do it in a nice coffee shop near the university. We sit around a big table, and for the 45 minutes we have a timekeeper. We write. And if you want to be doing your Facebook, that's your problem. You can do it and then the person calls time at 45 minutes, and then 15 minutes of serious gossiping, and talking rubbish. But make it fun, and drinking coffee if you can afford it. I mean, and then carry on. If you commit yourself, if you say, look, I struggle to write, but my friend also struggles to write. Doesn't mean you don't even have to be working in the same field. And we pledge to each other, I will support you to write if you support me to write. And the way that I will support you to write is by showing up and writing. Not by being very nice and saying, oh, shame, or whatever. My way because that's the way to support other writers, is to sit with them and write. If you do that, you're more likely to show up, because if you're anything like me, your guilt at not supporting the other person will drive you much quicker than so you make it a mutual thing. And writing is not a solitary activity, because that's part of the thing. Is you sit on your own, and it just gets eaten away by all sorts of more interesting, fun things to do. And it doesn't work for me anymore, but it used to work for me. Is I would say to people, I will have finished by such and such a date. I will have finished this. And I'm too embarrassed not to have done it. So the first time I got leave from the university I used to work with, I had a contract for my first book, and I knew I couldn't finish it in the time. So I put on the thing, on my form for leave, I will finish the book in this time. I knew that if I went back to the university and I hadn't finished the book, I would never get leave again, and my colleagues would be laughing at me. He never finished his book. I finished the book. I don't know how I did it, but I finished it, because the humiliation was worse. You've got to make something that's worse than writing. And humiliation is sometimes worse than writing. Okay. Often people in the social sciences value writing alone. And I write some stuff on my own, but it's often much better if you're struggling to write. I mean, many of you have done this, write with a team. You should do a combination, and you should make sure that sometimes you are first author for your career. But But it's much better to, like there are 4 authors, to be one of 4 authors of something that's actually finished than you're 100% author of something that's never going to see the light of day. I had 2 students, one brilliant and one okay, in a year that I taught. And I said to them both, you must write up your research. And the really clever one said, yes, no, they were going to write up their research. And they didn't need my help. I said, that's fine, I won't be a co-author. That's absolutely fine. Carry on, you're brilliant, do it. And then the not so good one said, no, please, would I help? And you know the end of the story. The not so good one, he was the first author, I was the second author. It was published, it's quite highly cited, it's very well known. The very brilliant student's article never saw the light of day. A much better article, but you know, it's like they say with the PhD, the best PhD is a finished PhD. The best article is the one that has actually appeared. You're told now by your university that you have to publish. So in South Africa, there's a subsidy that comes with publishing. And I'm sure, have you all been told you have to do it? Am I right? Yeah, okay. And you have to publish in international journals. Yes, you do. But if that, you have to find something in the writing which is more than that. Because you're not going to sustain yourself as a writer if you're just doing it because you have to. You've got to find the joy in it, which sounds difficult if you struggle with writing, but you've got to find a way that it gives you something more than I'm ticking the box of my job. You absolutely have to do that. And people that I've worked with, these are some of the feedback that I've had. I mean, for me, many of these things are true. I mean, I get, it keeps me in touch with people all over the world. Well, if I didn't publish a lot, I wouldn't be here. I'm so lucky to be in Ghana. Why am I in Ghana? Not because of my wonderful personality. It could be because of my good looks, I think. But that wasn't not a joke. But I'm here because I write. Actually, I've gone all over the world because I write. Okay, so gets me money to travel. I feel like I'm part of a global conversation. This one I really could have written. I don't know about you, but I don't know what I think until I write things down. Like as I'm writing, I think, oh, so that's what I think. So it helps me clarify my thoughts. And that's why partly the avoidance of writing is also the avoidance of thinking. Because I'm not too clear about this, so I won't even try and write it down, so I'll read something more. How do I clarify my thoughts? By writing, not by reading something. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying don't read, I mean, God forbid. And I'll tell you what else is amazing. I'm 62 years old, and I published, the first thing I ever published was in 1982, so I was in my 20s, right? I know what I thought 30 years ago. Do you know what you thought last week? I don't know what I thought last week. It's the most amazing thing. When you've got a stack of things that you've written over a period of 30 years, I can look at some stuff from a long time ago and think, gee, not bad. Yeah? And then other stuff, and then I can look at other stuff and think, oh, this is terrible. How could I ever have thought it? But I actually have this amazing record. It's fantastic. I can't tell you what pleasure it gives me. So as I mentioned right at the beginning, you just put peer review into Google Images, cartoon after cartoon after cartoon after cartoon. So here are 2 of them. Most scientists regard the new streamlined peer review process as quite an improvement because it is such an issue for so many people. Okay, so it's not fun. And I always say, being an academic is addiction to humiliation. So I'm the editor of journal editor. I've got all these publications. Just this morning when I managed to get online, a rude thing from a journal, from a reviewer who was talking about the ethics of reviewers, telling me I don't know what I'm talking about, and I've got to start from the beginning. I mean, can't I, at least this age, like I'm old, can't you give me a nice corner office and just accept everything it doesn't work like that. Okay, all right. But you must remember, who are the peer reviewers? I mean, this is from the field of physics. This guy's saying, I've been asked to be a reviewer for next year's conference. I guess they consider me to be an expert. But what was your qualification? Well, I had a paper published last year. But that means your paper was reviewed by people whose only qualifications that they had. Stop, you're making my ego hurt. It is peer review. Peer review is the people who are reading your paper are people like you. It's peer review. they're not necessarily more clever. They might be much more stupid than you. They're not necessarily more clever, more good-looking, more anything than you. Every single person that I know has had humiliating reviews. Everybody. So you can hide away, and this comes back to what we were talking about right at the beginning. You can hide away for a week. I'll give you a week. But then, and this is really important, show somebody your terrible peer review. Because people come to me and they say, look at these terrible things they've said about me. I said, just wait. Just wait. Look at mine. It says, this adds nothing to knowledge. Look at mine. It says, I don't see why the author bothered. And immediately, you're part of a community. Again, it's getting away from this individualism. You're part of a community of people who share this experience. And remember, most reviewers, well, not all, but most of them actually are trying to do their best. Okay. So, just some more jokes. But this is how I often feel. I don't know if you can see, like this nice little car, your manuscript as submitted, and then after peer review, it's got 3 extra wheels, 4 extra windows, try an alternative approach, add this, do that, front windshield, and you've got this big mess. And it does make you feel like this guy on the right here, which says, this morning I decided to trash the written version and communicate the sum of my work through interpretive dance. It does make you feel like that. I did a chapter for a book recently, and it's quite a prestigious book, a colleague and I. And in my view, it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. But who held the power? The reviewer held the power. And on some occasions, when you absolutely feel that this is wrong, then you mustn't just give in. Don't say what you don't believe. But actually, you don't hold the power there. And if you want to get published, do what they say. Okay. So, how do you eat an elephant? You know that story? How do you eat an elephant? Bit by bit. So you get these reviews, and the first thing is to take it bit by bit. And one thing you must remember, which is really counterintuitive, is if you get a very long review, like if you get 5 pages of comment, have any of you ever had that? 5 pages of comment on something you've written. It feels devastating, because 5 pages of telling me that I'm not good enough, I'd rather have 2 lines, thank you. But somebody has taken the trouble to sit down and give you 5 pages of comment. It's generally much better quality than the 2 lines. And it shows much more faith in your ability to put things right. Because if I think somebody's useless and never going to understand, I'm not going to write 5 pages for them. So, sometimes the voluminous reviews are actually good. So you must be able to show how you've responded to each comment, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. There is very little point in writing back to the editor saying the reviewers don't know what they're talking about. Biting and fighting generally don't work. Why? Because they're trying to get rid of your paper anyway. They've got too many. There are too many people trying to get into the journal. So, and if they're completely wrong, we'll talk about what to do when a reviewer is. It's occasionally they are, but generally speaking, here's my rule of thumb. So only 2 reasons that you get completely misunderstood is that they're idiots and can't understand your genius, which of course we all feel all the time. But the key one is, what have I done to enable this reviewer to misunderstand me so completely? It's not that they don't misunderstand, they do. How did I lead them in this direction? How did I not signpost correctly? How did we get to this? Sometimes it's just the reviewer, but it's often the way in which you put things together. So try and understand what they say, however hurtful. Be as polite as you possibly can. Say thank you, and if the reviewer says anything good, say thank you and give compliments, particularly if a reviewer is doing things really well. I've got the most wonderful example. We sent something to a journal, and there's an anonymous peer reviewer, and I looked at this review and I thought, that's the end of my work. Finished. Nothing. And then I put it away and I looked again. I was working together with 2 other people, and I realized this was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. There was like a gap you could drive a truck through in my argument that I hadn't seen before. I had to completely redo everything, but my work was much better. So I wrote to the editor and I said, this is amazing. It's one of the most difficult but best reviews I've ever got. This person is fantastic. And then at one point I said, really, because the reviewer will know who I am because the article's eventually published. I'd love to know who this reviewer is because I might want to work with them one day. And you know who the reviewer was? And this is just so fantastic. It was somebody who had applied to do a postdoctoral fellowship under my supervision. Actually ended up going somewhere else. It was a very junior person who was looking at my work, who wanted to work with me because she admired my work. And was able, because peer review is anonymous, she was able to teach me something which, it kind of violated the idea that I know everything and she knows nothing. I mean, wasn't that fantastic? It was just so, and I knew that's why I wanted to work with this postdoc. She didn't want to work with me though. She went and worked somewhere else. But okay, so be as clear as you can with reviewers. Reviewers will contradict one another. So one reviewer will say, I want more of this, and the other reviewer will say, I want less of it. And please don't be like somebody who wrote to my journal recently and said, Dear Professor Swartz, this author wants that, and that one wants that, and they're not saying the same thing, and what must I do? This came actually from a professor. I mean, I don't know. Take a holiday, But that's in the nature of the academy, is that there is debate. So if one reviewer says go left, and one reviewer says go right, you decide, and then you explain in your covering letter, I've gone left because I can see why the other one might have said I wanted to go right. This is why I chose to do that. That's in the nature of things. It's good that they contradict each other. If you complain, journals are looking for reasons to reject you. So if you start saying the reviewers don't know what they're doing, it's very insulting to the editor and it's awful for me because I have to send the response of the authors back to the reviewers. And I said there as an editor, I've begged someone, I've said, please, I can't get a reviewer for this. Please, will you do it? Please. And I know you did one for me 2 weeks ago. Please, will you do it? And then the author insults them. Just doesn't work. So be nice to the editor and the reviewers. And here comes this thing about the ethics. We was talking about the ethics of this. You yourself will be a reviewer and be nice and be constructive. This is my foolproof method for dealing with peer reviews. Is you make a table, and I'll tell you what you do. You take every single comment made by every single reviewer and you copy it into your table. And if the editor says something over and above that, like, you copy that as well. And then what you do is you break it into, how do you eat an elephant? Bit by bit. You break it into bite-sized chunks. Okay? So your reviewer can see, when I sat at 3 o'clock in the morning at my kitchen table, from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and I wrote all of these things, this person has looked at every word that I've written and taken it seriously. That immediately puts the reviewer on your side. They're not ignoring what I have to say. They're taking me seriously. Okay. The other thing that it does, and this is quite astonishing, I was working with a very brilliant young researcher who had actually got like almost never a negative comment ever on anything. Kind of people we hate. But we'll kick them out. But anyway, and then she contacted me and she said, I've got this terrible, terrible reviews. It was very long, 2 very long reviews, and they were actually incredibly positive. But she said, they're terrible, they're terrible. I said, we're going to do my method. And we sat down, and all we did was we chunked all the feedback into the table. So each point was in a separate row on my left-hand column. Okay? Point by point by point by point by point. Before she'd even started responding, she said, this looks doable, because she could immediately see, that one's easy. So they've said a whole long thing, but actually they just want me to put a reference there. And I can do that quickly. So she quickly did it. So what you do is you do this, and what I do is I attend to the easy ones first. You haven't referenced this, I stick in the reference. So you've got you're filling in your table on the right-hand side, which shows how you've responded while you are doing your corrections, and then you deal with the more difficult ones. But so here are some examples. It starts off with the reviewer saying, this is an interesting paper on an important topic. Say thank you to the reviewer. The reviewer likes it. You're not going to lose anything. Thank you very much. I'm glad you like it. Okay? But it fails to articulate its premises clearly. Thank you for this helpful comment. I mean, what you're actually thinking of, I was as clear as day. But on page 2 and 3 of the revised manuscript, we have made our position more explicit, and we've used bullet point formatting, so these are easy to read. So, you know, they know that it's dealt with. Then, I was shocked that the brilliant work of Swartz was not cited. And then we apologize for this oversight, and we agree with the reviewer that this is a key reference, and we've referenced it, and we've even given you extra. We've referenced another thing that Swartz did with his colleague. Okay? I would have liked to have seen more discussion of the Anthropocene. Thank you. But reviewer B, see our responses below, suggested that we omit any mention of it. We've decided to follow reviewer B on this as we have space limitations. So that's why we're going, but if you insist, we'll do it. But we would be happy to reconsider should reviewer A believe that this would be best. Generally speaking, when you offer that, they don't ask you to do it. But you can see, so part of what you're doing is you're managing this whole interpersonal process, and it takes it away from this thing of the torturer and the tortured. Because actually, most people don't, when I'm a reviewer, I don't like to feel that I'm torturing somebody. I want to feel that I'm appreciated and I'm being constructive. And similarly, when I'm an author, you know, we're all in this together. So this week, I'll review their thing, and it's exactly what happened with an open peer review process. I've just done a review on somebody's work, and then some journals have open peer review. The next paper of mine, she reviewed, because we're peers. It's obvious, you know, they've chosen obvious people. So that's how you do it. Why do things get rejected? And this is me as an editor speaking. Do you know what plagiarism is? Do you? Okay. Do you use Turnitin and that kind of software here? Yes. You would be astonished. It's by far the most common reason that things are rejected. People plagiarize like mad. Just be very careful. So put all your stuff through Turnitin before you. Do you have a mechanism where you can do that? Just don't. Stuff that's obviously pasted from a thesis. So you'll get, for the journal, I was reviewing something for qualitative health research, which then has 5 pages explaining to you about reliability and validity in qualitative research, when actually the readership of that journal has probably heard of qualitative research before, because that's why they're reading that journal. You have to fashion something new. You can use bits, but you can't just cut and paste from a thesis. You can't. It's a different animal, okay? Too much irrelevant detail, bringing in all sorts of things. We've spoken about that. Conclusions which have nothing to do with the data. You know, I've decided that I want, particularly in disability studies, we get it a lot. So, you know, people will collect data on one small aspect of disability and then say, therefore, the rights of people with disabilities throughout the world have not been realized, and it's a scandal. That doesn't follow from your data. It might be true. It doesn't follow from your data. Your data are sometimes irrelevant to your conclusion, got nothing to do with them. No idea of the field, and that goes with, you know, this is the first article ever to be published on something, and, you know, Google Scholar, I'll show you tomorrow, I can find anything in a second. You are never the first person, never. And if you claim that, you are making yourself vulnerable. So I always say when you are publishing, but it's similar when you're writing a thesis and you're reporting, think of yourself as you're climbing a tree. The minute you make a grand claim, you're out on a branch. Stay close to the trunk. You don't have to claim that. And people claim that because they don't feel confident or they haven't done their homework. Okay, and then wrong journal and wrong audience. So now with African Journal of Disability, we're nice to people, we help them. Suddenly people are sending us stuff that's got nothing to do with Africa or disability because they think we're nice people. The African Journal of Disability is not going to publish something on flower arranging in Japan. It's just not going to happen. Unless it's about disability and flower arranging in Japan, as is relevant to Africa. Right. When you publish, I don't know how many of you have got these, but you will then enter the strange Alice in Wonderland world of predatory publishing. Do you know what? This is the last thing we're going to talk about before tea. Do you know what predatory publishing is? They are businesses, and they will take your money because they know how desperate we are. to get things published. And who do they target? People like you and me. The big target continents are Africa and Asia, because we're under pressure, okay? And what they will do is, there is not a day that I do not get an email like this. Dear Dr. Leslie Swartz, hope this mail finds you well. I'm so delighted they care about my health. Thank you very much for your attention to International Journal of something or other. It'll be a great honor. And also, it'll be published in the next 2 minutes, because I'm in a hurry. I'm going up for promotion. There are lots of them. Here you are, this one. So this was 2 weeks ago, and it said, being impressed by your research work, we're communicating. Can you submit your paper? And this is how you do it. And then they've highlighted, note, publication on the 30th of October. So they will guarantee publication before they've even seen anything that I've written. If it's too good to be true, if it feels too good to be true, it is. We love your thesis. For free, we're going to make your thesis into a book. Send us the thesis. You send them the thesis. They find a picture, on the internet. They make a cover, and they slap that picture on, and then they say to you, would you like a few deluxe copies of your thesis, only $100 each? And then they will post you, indeed, 6 copies of your thesis with a new cover on. Not a word has been edited, nothing's been changed. That's not a book. If you publish with these journals, and I know some of you have, because I've seen it, it's okay to make a mistake once or twice. But if you keep doing it, it's worse than not publishing, because you are then part of a racket. So they will accept anything. But where does it come from? And this is really important, particularly for those of us in Africa. It actually comes from something which is the most important positive change in publishing, I think, for decades, and it's revolutionized, and that is the principle of open access. So when you publish an article in a journal, the journal has to employ people. Okay, they've got to employ people to write the emails, to do the technical editing. They'll send things to academics for free, and they generally, as an editor, I don't get paid anything. But in fact, I get a little bit which I don't use, and I'll explain to you what I use it for. So it has to be paid for, and the general old model of payment is you then charge people who want to read the journal subscription fees. So, University of Ghana. Do you get social science and medicine here, for example, as a journal? It's extremely expensive. I can't remember what it costs. It's lots and lots and lots and lots. They are paying a subscription to enable you to get access to that. And now, unfortunately, many institutions, including yours, I'm sure, because mine is a much richer institution and we struggle, can't afford all of these subscriptions. And many people are at universities, particularly in lower and middle income countries, where they can't afford a lot of the journals. So I was running a workshop for some people in Malawi, and they were expected to publish in a journal called Health Policy and Planning, which is a lovely journal, but they couldn't read the journal because they didn't have access to a university subscription. And as individuals, sometimes you want to get an article and it says it's only going to cost you $60 to get this one article. Who's got $60? Okay, so people became very concerned about this because this is again, it's reproducing unequal access to knowledge. So they said, okay, well, can we invert this whole system? And people with research grants who have money, can't they pay the costs of each article being published, and then the article is available free to anybody who wants to read it? And this is in fact the model of all of the public Library of Science, plus Medicine, plus One, and so on. They're all free. So anybody who has access to the internet anywhere in the world can access that. There are no subscription fees. It's free. Similarly, the whole of Biomed Central, which is a huge number of journals, BMC, Health Systems, it's all completely free. And there are also some groups which will try and get journals cheaper, like Hinari and so on. The journal which I'm editor of, African Journal of Disability, similarly, not only is it free, but I can look at, as the editor, I can see that people who are in countries that don't have universities that can afford subscriptions are reading my journal. So it's great. It means better access. But the predatory people just jumped on this model because we still have peer review, and they said, okay, well, we'll just get people to pay, and then people will think it's okay. So that's where the predatory stuff comes in. So if you get asked to pay page fees, it doesn't mean that it's a predatory journal. It may be. And the other thing is that many journals, this is important for you in Ghana, because it often is a disincentive. Many journals have a scheme that people, Ghana is a low-income country, particularly low-income countries. They have a scheme that if you're publishing from a low-income country, you won't have to pay the page fees. And I can tell you as a journal editor of an open access journal, over my dead body would I ever not publish something because the author couldn't pay. I will find a way. I have always found a way. So if you want to publish in a good journal, which is open access, which means a whole lot of other people in Africa can read it, don't be put off by the fact that there are page fees, because generally speaking, in fact, I've never heard a case where it hasn't happened. The editor will work with you, or your university will find them, like you'll find a way. But it's an incredibly important model because it's creating better access to knowledge.